If they treat you like garbage for months, there comes a time when revenge is not just an option, it is a necessity. Arda Güler has just made the most explosive decision of her career, and Real Madrid will pay dearly to have treated him as if he did not exist. Güler has just made a decision that will make Florentino cry for months. Subscribe now, because this channel knows exactly what is going to happen and where it will end up playing. Like it if you think that treating someone like garbage has consequences. And share it with a Madridista to ruin his week. This channel has exclusive first-hand information that will shake the foundations of the Bernabeu. Arda Güler has told her agent and her closest circle that she wants to leave Real Madrid this summer and that her favorite destination, the only one that really interests her, is FC Barcelona. It is not one more option among several. It is not a plan B or a comfortable alternative. It is pure and hard revenge against a club that has systematically humiliated him since the day he arrived. Joan Laporta and Deco are already working in silence to close an operation that, if it goes ahead, will be the most brutal media blow that Barça can give Madrid in years. Imagine the scene. The Turkish player that Madrid signed in front of Barça in 2023. The talent that Florentino boasted of having snatched from Laporta. The midfielder who was going to be the next great white star, wearing the blue shirt next season, scoring goals at Camp Nou while the Bernabeu rides in anger, seeing how another talent that they despised ends up shining in the eternal rival. This is not just about football or signings. It is about dignity trampled, broken promises, a 20-year-old boy who arrived with enthusiasm and found himself with the most toxic locker room in European football. To understand how we have reached this point without a return, first we must remember how it all started in the summer of 2023. Arda Güler was the jewel of the Turkish Fenerbahce, a left-footed midfielder with exquisite technique, spectacular vision of play, ability for the last pass that breaks defenses, dribbling in small spaces, clean ball hitting both to assist and to score. He was only 19 years old, and all the greats in Europe followed him closely. FC Barcelona was the first to get serious. Deco personally traveled to Istanbul to meet with the directors of Fenerbahce, with the player's agent, with Arda's family. Xavi Hernandez had specifically asked for a creative midfielder who could generate offensive play on the central line, because after the departure of several decisive figures, Barça had an evident lack in that position. Negotiations progressed very well. Fenerbahce asked for between 20 and 25 million euros for the player, who had an acceptable suspension clause. Laporta was willing to make the economic effort because he saw in Güler a long-term investment, a differential talent at a perfect age to shape him in the Barca style. Arda and his family were delighted with the option. They were excited about the idea of playing for Barca, of forming under Xavi's ideas, of sharing dressing room with players like Pedri or Gabi, who were of similar ages and compatible styles. The signing was practically closed. Only bureaucratic details were missing, signing papers, making official what was already a secret to the voices in Turkey. Then Florentino Pérez appeared, doing what he best knows how to do, putting bills on the table to snatch a signing from Barcelona. Madrid did not need Güler, especially at that time. They had the squad covered in all positions. There was no clear gap for a young midfielder who would require minutes of adaptation. But it did not matter because it was not a sporting need. It was about ego, power, to show who rules in the signing market. Florentino called the president of Fenerbahce directly, offered 30 million euros clean plus variables, promised Arda a project where it would be important, where he would have his space, where he would grow up playing in the best club in the world. The kid, who was 19 years old and saw Real Madrid knocking on his door, let himself be dazzled by the white shield and signed believing that he was going to triumph at the Bernabeu. The presentation was the usual in Madrid when young talent signs, press in the trophy room, photos with the white shirt, promises of a bright future, beautiful statements about fulfilling dreams and defending the largest shield in the world. Arda arrived excited, hungry, eager to show that he was much more than a promise, that he could perform at the highest level from the first day. The reality, he found, was completely different from what they had sold him. From the beginning, he noticed that he was not welcome in the locker room, that there were players who saw him as a threat for his minutes, that others indifferently ignored him as if he did not exist. There was no warm welcome that normally has a new signing. There were no veterans helping him to integrate. There were no teammates interested in how he adapted to the city or the language. The first months were very hard on a personal level, although he tried to hide it in public. He trained alone, ate alone, spent the afternoons at home locked up because he had no one to go out with, nor did anyone invite him to the group's plans. Ancelotti, who was the coach at that time, gave him residual minutes, 5 minutes at the end of already decided games, testimonial appearances that were not used to pick up pace or confidence. When Xabi Alonso arrived, things got even worse, because that's where the episode that made him the official stinker of the Real Madrid locker room started. His tactical ideas, his way of understanding football, which collided head-on with what some heavyweights on the squad wanted to do. There was tension from day one, clashes in training, discussions about how to press or how to play. An important group of players led by the team's stars began to move to force Xabi's departure, made comments in petit comite, filtered criticism from friends, generated a toxic atmosphere so that the coach could not work quietly. Arda Güler, who had just graduated from Turkey, where respect for the coach is sacred, did not understand what was happening. It seemed barbaric to him that professional footballers would try to kick their own coach instead of bending over and working for the project to work. In a locker room conversation, where several players openly spoke that Xabi had to leave as soon as possible, Arda made the mistake of defending him, said that it seemed unfair to judge a new coach so quickly that he had to give him time to implement his ideas, that perhaps the problem was not the coach, but the attitude of some players. From that moment on, Arda Güler went from being ignored to being directly put aside as if he had a contagious disease. No one passed the ball to him in training. No one spoke to him in the locker room. No one answered when he greeted. The ostracism was total and absolute. Xabi Alonso ended up being fired a few weeks later because the pressure of the heavyweights could more than any sports project. But the punishment to Güler for having defended him continued under the next coach and under the current Arbeloa. Months went by and Arda Güler's situation, instead of improving, became more and more unbearable. Arbeloa, who arrived as a coach after the chaos that left Xabi Alonso's departure, inherited a divided, toxic locker room, full of uncontrolled egos, and instead of trying to fix the situation, he simply adapted to it by accepting the hierarchies that the heavyweights imposed on him from day one. Güler remained the invisible, the one who does not matter, the one who is there, but as if he were not. The numbers say it all. 28 games played this season and not a single goal scored. But it is not that Arda has forgotten to play football all of a sudden. It is that when you enter the field and your own teammates do not pass the ball to you, and even if you are alone in front of the goal, it is impossible to score. Hendrik, when he publicly exploded a few weeks ago in his brutal interview from Lion, told chilling details about how that locker room works inside. He talked about how Mbappe and Vinicius have an unhealthy rivalry and they don't talk to each other, about how little groups are formed that hate each other, about how there are players who eat alone because no one wants to sit with them. And there he specifically mentioned Arda Güler as the perfect example of the kid who was systematically crushed just for having the courage to defend a coach when everyone else conspired to kick him out. Hendrik said that Güler eats alone every day in the concentration camp, that no one greets him when he arrives at the locker room, that in training when he asks for the ball his teammates pretend they don't hear him and pass it to another, that they have put him aside in such a brutal way that it is a miracle that the kid continues to get up every morning with strength to go to Valdebebas knowing the hell that awaits him. The birthday episode was the image that summarizes better than anything what Arda Güler is experiencing in Real Madrid. On February 15th, he turned 21. In a normal locker room, in a healthy team,